Y'all, Trump is firing the black people. One by one, the black faces inside his administration are vanishing, fired by email, text, or in the dead of night. Robert E. Primus was one of them, blindsided by a message that ended his career with a single click. What's happening isn't random. It's a purge, a quiet resegregation of federal power. Primus is the first black chair of the Surface Transportation Board. But now he joins a growing list of black officials abruptly ousted from the Trump administration. From General Charles Q. Brown Jr., the nation's top military officer, to Carla Hayden, the first black librarian of Congress. Even Lisa Cook, the first black woman on the Federal Reserve's board, had to sue to keep her seat. His administration's reasoning? They don't align with the president's agenda. But when almost every replacement, every one of them, is white, it starts to look less like realignment and more like resegregation. Of 98 top Senate confirmed appointees in his first 200 days, only just 2% are black, despite black people making up 13% of the US population. Compare that to Biden's 21%. Obama's was even higher. As one expert put it, Trump likes black faces behind his podiums, just not behind his policies. For decades, federal service has been a ladder to the black middle class. Steady work, fair pay, dignity. But today, that ladder is being yanked away rung by rung. Or as former board member Janine Wilcox said after her own late night firing, we had targets on our backs by virtue of the color of our skin. Welcome to Project 2025, y'all, where a text message can end a career and where thank you for your service sounds a lot like don't call us back. Y'all stay woke now.
I've spoken with a mother of an undocumented child that is keeping her child home from school. How do we protect children in this situation that are scared and mothers who are afraid?
Well, that fear is real, and that's what the president wants. Here's what I personally believe. The president of the United States of America and the handful of the ultra-rich are terrified of black and brown and Asian people having more political power than we've ever had in the history of America. They want those families to be afraid because they see the tides are turning, that you have more conscientious people who understand our collective responsibility one to another. It's why they're banning books. Like, this fear didn't just start with immigration. It's white men who are afraid of people being educated. That's what they're afraid of. It's why they're sowing seeds of division within communities. They're afraid of us uniting. I just want to make this point absolutely clear. Though I understand the fear, I'm asking people not to be afraid with everything inside of you. And here's what we're holding on to. It's why we have put forth these sweeping executive orders to make sure that people know their rights, that they know the role of local law enforcement, that we have put forth another executive order to prevent these individuals from staging on public spaces, and particularly our schools and our parks and our libraries, right? And as a part of a long-term strategy, will we have to look at other measures to make sure that families feel absolutely secure and safe? You better believe it.
Whatever is being done right now, I want you to still know that their plans is to erase black people, especially in America. First of all, it has started by erasing cities, books, erasing history, and so many other things. Down to now that it's now, all about, chasing people with eyes and all of that. Anyways, just watch these videos. I'll be back.
That made it very fucking clear that due to the recent events, a brown and black kid being traumatized doesn't fucking count. We don't fucking count. But a white Christian family traumatized because they were arrested, now that's a fucking scandal that needs to be investigated to the bottom with all of the possible resources of the law. Listen to what he says.
This man had an FBI SWAT team come to his door in the early morning hours with his beautiful children there, terrorizing them with weapons drawn.
They're beautiful children. What about my beautiful black children that were zip-tied and put outside fucking butt naked? What about my brown kids, my beautiful brown kids that are ripped from the arms of their mothers and thrown into a detention center? What about them? Why don't you talk about those beautiful kids? Why only these motherfuckers are beautiful? Why only they are important enough for you to speak about in Congress, in the Senate, I'm sorry. Why? What is the difference between those kids? You know what one of the differences? is that the father of these kids committed a fucking violation that deserved to be arrested. Black kids and brown kids that were zip tied and put outside in the fucking cold without clothes, they didn't do anything. They were completely innocent. And I didn't see Hawley or any other Republican making a scandal in the oversight committee. This was the oversight hearing, and you think they gave a fuck? No. But the white Christian family, oh please, that's a scandal we need to investigate. I'm Alex, this is my rant, and I'm out.
Ooh, I could talk all day about this. The erasure in black people and popular media in New Orleans is almost criminal, but it makes sense because you gotta remember this is a place that was a former French colony. The people that couldn't afford to live in France lived in New Orleans, and the new money that was the new white people that was coming into money wanted to be around the people with old money that lived in New Orleans. Like, yeah, because of slavery and all the things at the time, like, you know, New Orleans has this rich culture and history. But for the most part, the idea that this was like a white city, even though they had free people of color walking around, but, you know, the white people had all the wealth, that idea persists. And the most recent evidence is this is how the city's being gentrified right now. You know, the 20th anniversary of Katrina had just passed. A lot of that city still ain't recovered or been built on because you still got a bunch of black folk that live there. I live in the Orlando Kissimmee area right now. I know 6 different people that I can name that done moved from here, a place that has way more money than New Orleans does, empirically, to go live there. None of them are black. All of them are white. Why? Media. For people that ain't from there, the appeal of that you can just be in this party city all the time and, you know, be in this place that doesn't look like any other place. Unless you go to Savannah, Georgia, or like St. Augustine or something like that. It's a draw. That's why that is, you know? And it's not like, you know, you could really make a show or like have something in popular media about the real demographic of New Orleans, because you would then have to talk about crime, and now we're talking about all this other stuff. And if it's not about crime, you're going to have to talk about how black people maintain and progress a culture in a city and are the cornerstone, backbone, spine, soul, bones, and flesh of a culture in a city. And that's just not going to happen.
Oh my goodness. So I've always considered Trump to be dictator-like. Not a full-on dictator, but dictator-like, right? Because, for example, when it comes to, you know, anything that someone says that it goes against Trump's narrative, well, he won't have you yeeted, right? He won't have you magically disappear, you know, unless you're Epstein, you know, in that case. But he will, you know, file a lawsuit or something, right? He will try and make your life extremely difficult. He'll try and financially bankrupt you via the power of the White House and, you know, people who bend the knee to him. That's what he will do. When you look at his cabinet is not full of diverse opinions, diverse thoughts, and experts. That's not what it's filled of. It's filled of loyalty, loyalists. That's what it's filled of. It's filled of yes men, where we have an emperor has no clothes on. And that is the problem, okay? That's where I'm saying it's really, you know, a distinction without a difference at this point. And I say that to say this because it's gotten really egregious recently. And what he currently wants to do is do a review of the Smithsonian. Now, we're all aware of the Smithsonian. I personally visited the Smithsonian, a great place, a lot of great, you know, Black American history there. And he wants to review the texts, the exhibitions, the social media posts.
In Washington, the White House is ordering a review of the Smithsonian Museum and exhibitions. They say their goal is to align the content in those exhibits with President Trump's interpretation of American history.
What? Now, if that doesn't scream fascist dictator to you, I don't know what to tell you. The problem with that is is that he has a very limited scope of history. Trump came and ran on as far as a very much white nationalist talking point of, hey, we've got to stop, the anti-white racism going on here. And everything that he has done, whether it's reparations to white people.
Explicit unlawful discrimination under the guise of equity will not only have their endowments taxed, but through budget reconciliation, I will advance a measure to have them fined up to the entire amount of their endowment. A portion of the seized funds will then be used as restitution for victims of these illegal and unjust policies that hurt our country so badly.
Whether it's, we saw what happened when it came to DEI, when they say, hey, we don't want any DEI in the federal government. Who got negatively impacted by that by far? Black Americans. We saw how they removed the Tuskegee Airmen. They removed them. They have associated DEI with black people. So can you imagine what the museum is going to look like in accordance with his interpretation of history?
The examination will look at all public-facing content such as social media, exhibition text, and educational materials.
Where he'll probably water down where we saw this in Texas, where they said, black people weren't slaves, they were immigrants, that they immigrated over here. That's the type of flowery, ahistorical language that we are dealing with.
Is being done to, quote, assess tone, historical framing, and alignment with...
Before Rosa Parks, there was a 15-year-old girl who did the exact same thing and got erased for it. Her name is Claudette Colvin, and when she refused to give up her seat on that Montgomery bus, she wasn't thinking about cameras or movements. She was thinking about the Constitution that she had just learned about in school. And that's what made her dangerous. She knew her rights, and she said them out loud. It was March 2nd, 1955. Claudette was on her way home from high school. She was sitting in the black section when the bus driver told her to move for a white passenger, and she said no. And when the police came, she told them straight up, "It is my constitutional right." They dragged her off that bus, arrested her, and booked her like a criminal. 9 months before Rosa Parks did the same thing. But you don't see Claudette in the textbooks, right? Because the people leading the movement decided that she wasn't the image they wanted to portray. She was poor, she was dark-skinned, she was emotional. And later, when she got pregnant, they said she'd hurt the cause. So they buried her story. This is what a lot of people don't understand, is that the civil rights movement was very strategic. They needed somebody who looked respectable, somebody who white America wouldn't immediately demonize. And Rosa Parks fit that image perfectly. She worked for the NAACP, she was known in the community, and she looked like a woman that you could sympathize with on the evening news. Now, none of this takes away from Rosa Parks' courage, but it does show you how even our revolutions were edited for public comfort. Because Claudette Colvin wasn't polished, she was raw. She was real. And sometimes America can only stomach black resistance if it's quiet. But here's what's wild. Because Claudette didn't disappear after her arrest. She became one of the plaintiffs in Browder v. Gale, the federal case that actually ended bus segregation in Montgomery. Her name, along with 3 other women, is literally written into the legal decision that changed history. But because she didn't fit the image, she never became the face. She carried the fight, but the world carried Rosa's picture. Claudette eventually moved to New York. She worked quietly as a nurse's aide for decades. No interviews, no awards, no fanfare. And when she finally spoke out years later, she said it felt like the movement had used her and then threw her away. But she also said history had me glued to that seat, because even as a teenager, she understood that freedom wasn't going to wait for someone to make her ready for it. Claudette Colvin was 15 when she faced down the system. And if that makes you uncomfortable, it should. Because the truth is, the revolution never starts with what's convenient. This one started with a little girl that refused to move. We love to celebrate change once it's polished. But the real work, the real bravery, comes from the people who act before the world decides if they're worth remembering. So don't just say Rosa's name, say Claudette Colvin's too. Because without her, that bus never moved. Say her name, Claudette Colvin.
You can't erase something that never happened. It's Indigenous Peoples Day. Columbus never set foot on U.S. soil. So what's being erased is the lie, not history. Replacing Columbus Day with Indigenous Peoples Day is not about forgetting the past, but honoring the people whose history was buried underneath colonial myth. But I get it, it's really hard when you've been lied to, especially if the lie has been told to you your entire life. You'll be betrayed. feel like a piece of your identity is lost. It bruises the ego and damages pride. But it's not about erasure. It's more about discomfort. Not only did Columbus never set foot on U.S. soil, he didn't discover anything. You can't discover a place that people already live, number one. Number two, he wasn't even the first European to set foot on what is now called the Americas. The myth of Columbus was created as a national origin story. This brave explorer on a divine mission, it just served to justify European colonization and manifest destiny, as well as slavery, genocide, and a bunch of other evil and nefarious things. So evil and nefarious that Columbus and his brothers were actually under investigation and arrested, brought back to Spain in chains, and jailed and put on trial because their own colonists were like, yo, it isn't right what you're doing to these people who already live here. Yo, he lost his land, he lost his titles, all his wealth. Because his own people were like, you can't treat other humans that way and get away with it. And that says something. This is all documented in his own personal journals, too. I'm not making this up. Real historical literacy means understanding what actually happened and including voices that were silenced so that you can get a whole picture of what actually happened and not what was convenient to teach. Because history isn't there for you to like or dislike. It's there for you to learn from. You can't do that when half of it is silenced.
So, y'all see that moon behind me? That shit look good, don't it? That's what I came in for. Just to let y'all see the moon from. It's about to get dark. Can I flip this camera? Yeah. Looks great, eh? Don't it? Man, I love it. Also had something that I wanted to share with y'all. I guess I can do it with the moon behind me. I was gonna wait till tomorrow because the subject came up in a discussion about them taking slavery out of public schools. I'm not really sure what the deal is with that. What I can say is all these years, since I was in my early 20s, I was sick of seeing these damn slave movies. You know, sick of seeing these We Shall Overcome movies because that shit is depressing. That shit is for the birds. And imagine now, see, I grew up here in the South. I'm in the South right now. And the school system that I grew up in elementary school, in middle school, it was like half and half, black and white at that time. And right now, it's like 98% black. But we were taught by old white teachers, you know what I mean, about slavery. So imagine you being in a class where there's other little black kids like yourself, and then you have a bunch of white kids in the class, and y'all being taught about slavery from an old white person. So already it's not a good feeling or whatnot. But you have to look even deeper to the point where, look at the point that now you have children in the class with each other. Half of your class is feeling like, oh, my ancestors used to work for their ancestors. And then the other half feeling like, yeah, your ancestors used to work for my ancestors. That's not something that needs to be taught to children. And no, it's not taking away black history. I don't know what the government's aim for this is. I don't give a damn about what the government's aim is. But what I can say is, when you talk about black history, it's proven that we've been here for thousands of years. Proven. Okay? Well beyond slavery. No matter what you want to put what number you want to put to it, well beyond slavery. So that's not black history. All right, that's just a hurdle in our history. You know what I'm saying? That we really should not say that is our history, because a lot of the numbers is fabricated. A lot of that stuff is fabricated. I only got 10 minutes on this video, and I go deeper in depth on YouTube about this situation. So check out my YouTube page. Y'all see the link in the bio. Yeah, so Yeah, it's not our history. So you can't say they're taking our history away if they take slavery away. Your kids are, it's not a comfortable situation. Leave that up to the parents to teach. Like I said, it's not our history. They're not taking black history away. If you want to talk about real black history, let's talk about North America, the land that we stand in right now, full of black history. And I'm only using black for lack of a better term. So, I mean, it already puts children in a mind frame that they're under someone else, when children should not feel like they're under anyone but the one that created them and their parents. Yeah, that's not something that you want to fall in the wrong hands, that type of power to teach your children that. The thing is, I've heard stories where teachers are putting on slavery plays in elementary school and middle school or whatnot, and you know when they do that, you know who's going to play the slave, right? And you know who's going to play the slave master. So if you take slavery out of high school, out of the schools, period, they can't do that. They can't put that play on there, and that becomes a major felony. But hey, if they teach it in the books, why can't they do a play about it in school? I'm just saying. Yeah, that subject, man, is not for us. It's not for us. And let's talk about the North American slave trade. You telling me that a few boats, let's say 100 boats, a few hundred boats full of Europeans, Caucasian Europeans, I say that, went to Africa, the biggest continent on the planet, and stole some of the strongest, biggest, fastest people on the planet, over 100 million of them over time, and came to this land here, killed over 100 million of the indigenous people here, took their land and replaced them with the same people they got from over. Man, y'all, come on, man, stop the bullshit. Stop the bullshit. As they say, stop the cap, man. Stop the cap. Yeah, man, take that bullshit out the schools, man. Give them children a fair chance. You know, all is mine. Once you teach a child that they come from slaves, that sets their mental back more than anybody in that classroom. And once you teach someone that their people were in charge of these slaves, that pushes them, that gives them white privilege from the jump. And y'all worried about, oh, they're gonna take our history out the school. Bullshit. Y'all niggas, boy. Look, man, yeah, choose your battles wisely. I mean, really wisely. Look deep into what's really going on. Don't just say they taking black history. That ain't black history. That ain't the bullshit that they gonna teach them anyway. Ain't gonna be true. From the fact, let them take the slavery shit. You know what I mean? You teach your children their history. How about that? You teach your children their history. Let them go get their doctrines and get their certifications, you know what I'm saying? Get their paperwork, but you teach them at home. Straight up. You teach them at
Donald Trump has just erased black history from the U.S. Air Force, banning the teaching about the Tuskegee Airmen, a famous group of African-American pilots and other support teams who helped fight the Nazis in Europe in World War II. And now the Air Force has to remove them from the curriculum because Trump's new orders against diversity say we can't teach that to our soldiers because it's bad for them. But you know what? I can teach you about it, and I will. So before World War II, the military was segregated, right? Blacks and whites could not fight alongside each other. Specifically, blacks were also not allowed to be pilots because, listen to this, the Air Force had determined, the Army War College actually had determined that African Americans lacked the courage and fortitude to fly planes, right? Listen to this, the all-black 332nd Fighter Group based at Tuskegee Army Airfield in Alabama shattered the race barrier. The unit had as many as 14,000 airmen, 1,000 of them pilots. They flew 15,533 sorties, so in other words, like air attacks over Europe during World War II. 96 distinguished flying crosses, 3 presidential unit citations, etc. These were famous Americans. They were the greatest generation. They were our World War II heroes, and they were black. And now you will never hear about them in the U.S. military because Donald Trump just erased them from history. And by the way, final point here for anybody who says what the difference is between Democrats and Republicans on race and how it doesn't matter who you vote for. Yeah, it matters.
We know Donald Trump to be a lot of things. Many, many things Donald Trump is. He's a grifter, he's a charlatan, he's a liar. But I think most famously, he is a white supremacist. He is an anti-black crusader. He is someone who has set his attention to erasing the contributions of black Americans from every facet of our history, from our military to museums to cultural and scientific advancements that have been provided by the brilliance of black minds in this country. Literally erasing photos on the Pentagon website talking about the accomplishments of black military members. It's an assault on black people in this country. It shouldn't come as any surprise for anybody. If you're white or black, it shouldn't come as any surprise that Donald Trump would do this. But it's also taking a real world impact on the jobs and livelihoods of black people as he is systematically firing specifically black leaders in our government and replacing them with white people. For all of the talk about DEI and that anybody who got their job through DEI was unqualified, that it's just a fundamental misunderstanding of what DEI is, first of all. But secondly, it's just an excuse to continue to erase black contribution in this country. Get a load of this in MSNBC. In New York Times headline, Trump fires black officials from an overwhelmingly white administration. Separately, in the administration's first 200 days, only 2 of 98 Senate confirmed appointees to the most senior jobs in government were black. One of those, of course, is to run the Housing and Urban Development Administration, the agency. In the first term, it was another black dude. It was Ben Carson, you'll remember. You know, Ben Carson, who has no expertise whatsoever in housing. He's a famed surgeon, but apparently because he's black, he must know about housing and urban development. That in and of itself, it smacks of white supremacy with Donald Trump.
Why is black history not just British history? Because the erasure of this history protects our whiteness. I'm the anti-racist mum, and I help white parents and professionals unlearn our racism so that we can stop inflicting harm on our global majority communities. Let's be honest, the national curriculum actually erases the real history of Britain through what it teaches. You know, we fail to teach children and young people about pre-colonial Africa. We fail to teach children and young people about pre-colonial Australia, about pre-colonial America, as if black history didn't exist, as if we started everything. And this certainly isn't accidental, is it? It's about protecting the legacy of colonialism, about protecting the image of whiteness for the pupils at school. And it's about maintaining white silence when, we experience or we witness the oppression of non-white communities because we're trained to not say anything for our whole academic life. But the truth is, Britain, we wouldn't exist in this form today if it wasn't for black history, if it wasn't for the wealth that we stole, the resources that we extracted, and the labour that we extracted from humanity as part of various slave systems. But if we actually value the truth, we have to enable our children to know the truth of British history, to not erase what we took, and to build better. I'm the anti-racist mum, and I help white parents and professionals do better. If you're ready to take steps to unlearn your conditioning and create safer communities where all children and young people can thrive, get in touch and ask your child's school what stories are missing. Start challenging the silence, the complicity.
Black people in America have always been told, work harder, build your communities, invest in your family, and you'll succeed. What happens when we did exactly that? Built towns, built wealth, schools, built futures. Only for white mobs and the government or developers to burn it all down. This isn't just Tulsa. Across America, thriving black towns were destroyed. And in some cases, their remains are literally underwater. In the early 1900s, Greenwood in Tulsa, Oklahoma was booming. Black-owned banks, hotels, movie theaters. doctors, and lawyers. People called it Black Wall Street. But on May 31st of 1921, a white mob stormed Greenwood after a false rumor that a black man assaulted a white woman. Sound familiar? And in less than 48 hours, they burned 35 blocks, killed as many as 300 black residents, and left 10,000 homeless. And nobody was ever convicted. Wealth destroyed, and generational futures stolen. Rosewood was a quiet, mostly black founded in the 1800s. Families owned land, businesses, and churches. In January 1923, a white mob attacked the town after an accusation of assault. Sound familiar? Over the course of a week, black families were hunted, homes were torched, and dozens were killed. Survivors fled and never returned, and Rosewood was literally erased from Florida's map. On November 2nd of 1920, Election Day, hundreds of black residents in Ocoee, Florida were registered to vote. That threatened white political power. And when a black man insisted on voting, a white mob responded with violence. Homes were burned. Churches were destroyed. 80 to 100 black residents were killed. And the rest were forced out. And after that, for decades, it mostly remained white. These weren't just towns. They were futures. They were proof that black people could survive despite everything America threw at us. Jealousy and racism turned that success into a target. These communities weren't destroyed by chance. They were destroyed by design. And the fact that so many people don't know this history, that's part of it too. Remember their names, because when we say we built this country, we come up with receipts.
Here are 15 black inventors that you should have heard of, coming to you live from the National Inventors Hall of Fame. We're going to kick things off with Marie Van Britten Brown, the woman who was ADT and Ring before ADT and Ring ever existed. In the 1960s, as a nurse in New York, she was fascinated with electronic products, and her husband happened to work in the electronics industry, so she got her hands on some closed-circuit television cameras. And what she did was create a home security system, complete with that closed-circuit camera, remote door locks, panic buttons to the fire and police department. She could remotely lock and unlock her door, and she received a patent for this.
George Washington Murray was born into slavery in 1853 in South Carolina, and he actually served in Congress. He was the only African American in the 53rd and 54th Congress. But he was also an inventor, and he held 8 patents in farming and agriculture. And one of those patents, those inventions, was this one right here, which was inspired by his wife's sewing machine. And it was a farming device that had interchangeable parts.
Next up on our list is the man, the myth, the legend, George Washington Carver. George Washington Carver did not invent the peanut, that was the big guy, or peanut butter, but he did find over 325 uses for the peanut, aka legume, revolutionizing the entire industry.
Patricia Bath was inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame in 2022 and was the first black woman physician to receive a medical patent. Her invention, the laser phaco, a new device and technique for removing cataracts.
Dr. Gladys West, a Virginia State University graduate who went on to work at the Naval Surface Warfare Center for over 40 years, she came up with many, many amazing things. But the crazy thing, and the most amazing thing she did, is she figured out the gravitational and tidal forces on our planet. And she figured out the mathematical computations. And what this led to is pinpoint accuracy of GPS.
Familiar with blood banks and blood mobiles, then thank Dr. Charles Drew of the illustrious Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. Dr. Drew created a way for us to not only preserve blood, but to transport it, which was very important during World War II, which saved countless numbers of lives. Unfortunately, African Americans at that time were not allowed to actually donate blood, but that was reversed in 1942 when the Red Cross allowed it, except that blood was still segregated. Dr. Charles Drew then resigned in protest. Sadly, Dr. Charles Drew would actually die in 1950 in a car accident.
One of my favorite inventors of all time, Frederick McKinley Jones. He was orphaned at 11 years old with a 6th grade education, and he went on to change our world. Not only did he patent the movie ticket dispensing machine, he created a pre-runner of the snowmobile and the portable x-ray machine. He also created mobile refrigeration, which gave the world Thermo King, which is how we transport frozen items from point A to point B. And he received over 60 patents in his lifetime.
If you like breadcrumbs in your salad, then you're going to love Joseph Lee. Born in 1849, he spent the first 10 years of his life in slavery. He then went on to be a blacksmith in the Civil War and then served as a steward in the U.S. Coast Survey. Now, as a steward, he was a cook and a baker. And it was the baking that changed everything. A self-taught entrepreneur, Lee created a device that was a kneading device that helped streamline the baking process and create more uniform bread. With a lot more bread, he started looking around and seeing that there's a lot actually going to waste. And so even though it may be a day old or a little stale, he's like, you know what, there's something that can be done about this. And so he created the breadcrumber.
James West holds over 250 national and international patents. He's most famously known for the electric microphone, and over 90% of microphones in use today are based upon his technology.
One of the best-selling toys of all time and a water gun that changed the world, the Super Soaker, was actually invented by a nuclear engineer and a graduate of Tuskegee University, Lonnie Johnson.
Now let's talk about Ned. We don't actually know his last name because Ned was an enslaved black American man, and he came up with the idea of the double cotton scraper. But the man who enslaved him, Oscar Stewart, tried to patent that idea, but because he couldn't prove that he came up with it, he couldn't receive the patent. And because Ned was an enslaved man, he couldn't prove citizenship, America.
Thomas Jennings was the first African American to receive a patent in the United States for dry scouring, which is today what we call dry cleaning. In 1820, he applied for the patent and had to take an oath to swear that he was actually a citizen of the United States. Now, he was a freeman, so he was a citizen. Upon his death, Frederick Douglass wrote that the patent recognized his citizenship.
I told you about Ned, but let me tell you about Madam C.J. Walker, one of the first American women to be a self-made millionaire. She built a hair product company that became an international conglomerate. And she was so successful because she invested back in her business and the communities that supported her. And she actually went to President Woodrow Wilson in 1917 to demand that we make lynching a crime.
If you like working from home, then thank Marion Croak, the inventor of the Voice over the Internet protocol. She's the one who kept us all connected during COVID. Walt Disney's most prolific inventor is Laney Smoot. He has 106 patents and counting. And one of my personal favorites is the extendable lightsaber. And he has been revolutionizing the film industry. And one of those inventions is this right here, the holotile floor technology, which allows actors to be on a stage, stand on the floor, and walk and move in any direction without ever actually moving.
This concludes our tour at the National Inventors Hall of Fame here in Alexandria, Virginia, where this is like a living, breathing database of some of the most brilliant and American genius in our country's history.
So, what are we going to talk about next?
It's very important as a black person in the world to actually read. Always read, make research to know things that is happening around you. A lot of things have been erased. You have seen it according to the creators. A lot of them are saying Trump is trying to remove a lot of things about the black people from the military and all of that. It's not just that. So many cities have been wiped out. So many black cities are no longer in existence today. Go and find those things out. You are a chosen nation. You are the royal priesthood. You are the chosen. You don't have to sit down like that without finding out what these things are and knowing them. Teach your generation, teach your children, so that even when you're not here, they can run with the course. Make sure that you're getting yourself equipped. And then we cannot rule out the fact that prayers works more than anything. Prayerfully, I still see black people succeeding, but that's prayerfully. But what do you need? You need to arm yourself. You need to go and study. You really need to go and learn these things, right? Make researches. In time to come, we might not even see all those videos anymore on YouTube. We might not see them in the shelves anymore. What do you have? What do you have? Right? You can see these beautiful stories about so many heroes black Americans had that we don't even know. And we're just getting to know them right now. Imagine these people were not on TikTok to share these things. How would we even have known that black Americans did this, they invented this, they did all of that? You have to guide and protect your spaces, or else you'll be erased. And I don't want that to happen. It will not even happen, right? That is it. I want to see your thoughts in the comments. Do not forget to subscribe, like, and share these videos to your friends and everyone around you. Keep supporting Global Justice BJ and your sister Blessing. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.